everybody. Welcome to the Ink and Paint Club podcast review show. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, it's Final Fantasy month here on the channel because Final Fantasy 15 is coming out at the end of the month, and I figured, what the hell. So if you didn't listen last week, I did a solo review of some 90s Final Fantasy movie that wasn't all that great, but it was alright. And we're going to be doing Final Fantasy reviews all month. So be sure you, check back on the channel and watch all that. But anyway, matter at hand here. Anyway, my name is JD, and with me is not Kyle, but making her return since, God, it's been February.
Yeah.
Ariel's back.
Well, I did the October thingy, I guess, Red.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Ariel did a story. Well, actually, you both did. Ariel did a story for our Creepypastas thing, which, again, thank you both for.
I sucked at it.
No. We got one comment that said, "Oh, these were good." They said Crybaby Lane was the worst one, so that wasn't yours. I don't know if it was a comment on Zach's narrating, but it was, or more if it was just the story, but I don't know. Oh yeah, and also we've got a longtime friend of mine, Patrick, is with us today. He's new to the show.
Hello and good evening, everybody, or good morning, or whatever time of day you're listening to the podcast.
I mean, it's 9 o'clock here, so Patrick also did, like I said, a story for us, and that was awesome. So yeah, if you have, I know it's after Halloween, but if you guys want to go listen to some creepy cartoon stories, go listen to that, because we put a lot of effort into that.
Spoopy.
I thought it came out very nicely.
I thought everyone did a great job.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. I thought everyone did a really good job with it for the most part. When I was recording my bit, I had several friends with me in a Discord channel. Everyone was on mute while I was recording the story, so they pretty much got to their own live version of the story that no one else has.
That is hilarious.
True story, my story, I literally read like 6 times, so that last recording, I was so mad the entire time, and so I did it all in one shot. That's why I was like running out of breath. That's why it sounded like ridiculous at the end. Like, it kind of worked with the story because it like really gets pumped up at the end, but I was like losing breath because I was so mad, and I was like, I'm gonna get this right, I'm gonna save it, I'm gonna send it, and that's it.
At least, I mean, I still think it worked really well for what she did, but at least you weren't Jessa's where she was laughing through the entire thing because it was so ridiculous.
Oh my god, that one is ridiculous though.
She was like, I'm laughing through this, I'm sorry. I was like, no, I think it's hilarious.
It worked.
I'm gonna keep this in.
Yeah, and I'll say I don't know what anyone else thought about my story. I didn't see any comments on mine. Unless they liked it, so.
Like, as soon as we kind of started this and I heard your voice, I was like, oh, it's that guy who kind of sounds like he should be on radio. So.
If I only had $1 every time someone said that, I'd be a millionaire by now. And probably working in radio. But
I'm just saying.
In the meantime, this is what I do in my spare time, is just talk to lovely people about certain things.
About garbage films.
Speaking of garbage films, okay. So what I meant to get to like 5 minutes ago. So in this being Final Fantasy month, we're going through various Final Fantasy films throughout the ages, and we're going to talk about what is probably not even arguably the worst one. Which I'm not even saying this movie is bad. It's just. We'll get into it. But anyway, we'll be talking about the 2001 film Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within. And if you're any kind of Final Fantasy film or Final Fantasy fan, you probably know all about this. But for those of you uninitiated, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is its own rendition of just bad, and what am I watching?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I watched this last night for like the first time since I saw it in theaters as a child. And I don't really much like last week's, I don't really understand what happened in the movie. So my basic understanding of this movie is that like it's in the future, some some meteor crashed into the planet, and these fucking alien things come out, and humanity's fighting the aliens, and we're trying to find a way to stop the aliens. Movie.
Okay, so it's like just like any Final Fantasy. This is where it does have like the just hints of Final Fantasy aspects. Is it's future past is what I always refer to it as. It's like simultaneously in the past, but in the future, kind of weirdness. Like they really have no technology. It's new technology, but it's like incredibly insane from what we would see. And these monsters are not just like weird. They're like spirit creatures. And for whatever reason, these spirits can basically separate your spirit. Like, they eat it, consume it. I don't know why. That's just this entire story, the entire time. In rewatching it, I also rewatched last night. I was texting you about it. I was like, what the crap? Like, the thing is nothing ever gets really fully explained.
Oh, no. There is a lot. See, that's the thing. There's a lot of interesting concepts brought up in this movie. Zero of it is explained.
Like,
you were just expected to, like, just go with it.
The only, like, Final Fantasy aspects that I could pull out of this entire movie, and, like, this is my biggest problem, because, like you said, it's not bad. It's just, what the fuck am I watching? The only aspects I can find is that future pastness, weirdness, and there's a guy named Sid, just like in everything. Yeah. But I could connect it to that, like I can connect it to fucking Kingdom Hearts, you know?
Yeah, like the only two things Final Fantasy thing I got out of this was, like you said, the guy named Sid, and then they have some like planet live stream thing like they did in 7.
And kind of like 10, they have those like spirit kind of weirdness going on.
But other than that, there is zero things connecting this to Final Fantasy. Like, I was watching a video and it said, I think there's like a chocobo symbol on a bag somewhere. And at the beginning of the film, like there's this really in your face, like here's our corporate sponsors thing. Like it has there's a skyscraper, has a Pepsi logo, has a MasterCard logo, and there's a Square logo on the side of the building. Oh
God.
You can find the Square logo another time later on in the film. It's on one of the ships.
Oh, that's funny.
But
wait, what the fuck was I talking about?
Not Final Fantasy.
Yeah, there is nothing connecting this to Final Fantasy. Like, okay, so what bugs me most about this movie, in terms of not being a Final Fantasy connected whatever, because I understand every Final Fantasy is a different continuity, different whatever. I'm fine with that. What bugs me the most about this is that every Final Fantasy is set in some kind of fantasy world. It's like they have their own different world. This movie is set in our world. Like the beginning of the movie starts in space and having the Ming-Na, who you probably know as Mulan, and she's on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. right now. She's coming back to Earth, and you see America, and she's going back to New York, and they go to Arizona, and it's like these are real world locations. And Final Fantasy does not deal in real-world locations.
No, not in the slightest. Like,
I don't know. So, the thing is, and a lot of people got really mad when this movie first came out, because they were expecting Super Final Fantasy, and, like, it never really portrayed... I think what people were expecting was, you know, Cloud and Tifa, and, you know, all those, like, classic characters... But it obviously wasn't, and it was never portrayed like that. So it already had a bad rap. But this movie just didn't make sense. And, like, the Final Fantasy aspects were so... Like, and I wasn't expecting, like, Sephiroth to show up in the middle of it. But I was sure as hell expecting, like, some sort of...
Right. Like,
I would have said, though, if Sephiroth did show up in this terrible film, it would have at least made it more interesting.
You know what? I would love a Sephiroth James Woods battle, but it's just not gonna happen in my lifetime.
Right.
No.
Anyone else
you're
just
right.
like die though? Like I just expected like James Woods to pop up like, ooh, piece of candy. Like didn't work.
But yeah, you're right. I think a lot of people are expecting like more Final Fantasy aspects for this movie. Like there's no magic, there's no summon stuff. Everything is rooted in like plausible technology and
I would have been okay if there was like runes or some sort of like summon, because that's the other thing that like Super Link's every single Final Fantasy together is summons. That is like such a huge thing, and it's always the same ones. Like, could we have at least had Leviathan or Bahamut? You don't even have to have him, but like someone simple would have been nice to appear. Some sort of, there was no weirdness. I was hoping, and rewatching this, I was like, maybe I missed something. I was hoping that maybe those like 8. So part of the story is like she has to go and collect these 8 spirits, and you learn it like halfway through the story. And like in this halfway point, it almost feels like the movie should end. I'm just saying, it felt like this movie had 3 endings. But
oh yeah,
I was hoping that like these 8 spirits would be some kind of like weird summons thing, and she would end up having to summon them at the. No, I was right.
They're just
some kind of thing that ate her away.
They're spirits they pulled out of random things, and the things like okay, that's another thing that really bugged me about this movie. So there's this whole plot where. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I don't remember anybody's names. So when Big Na Wen's character is like saying, "Okay, we need to get these spirit things together because for some reason when we do that, it'll make this waveform that'll destroy the." Yeah.
A key.
Thank you.
Right. I believe her character name. Yeah, her character name was Aki Ross. She was working with her mentor, Dr. Sid, and they were trying to like, oh well, if we bring all these spirits together, it negates the phantoms. But
for some
James
reason,
Woods and his general character, who is quote unquote the bad guy of the film, which I still never understood how he was the bad guy.
He's more of a bad guy in freaking Fam Guy than he is in this. I'm just saying.
He's just a jerk. That's really all he is. He's just a jerk. He's not even a bad guy.
I just want to say through this entire movie, I was thinking, if we put a pair of sunglasses on him, he kind of looks like Wesker from Resident Evil. He's got the weird sneering face. He's got the black trench coat. He's got the slick back hair.
Oh, God, yeah,
just make him blonde, give him some sunglasses. He's Wesker.
And the same kind of attitude, too. Like, he is such a wimp.
But, man, there's, the amount of celebrity in this movie is kind of baffling because, like, Ming-Na Wen's not a huge name, but Alec Baldwin is one of the main characters, Steve Buscemi,
Ving Rhames, Donald Sutherland.
And I'm sure every single one of these got this script, saw the word Final Fantasy, and thought, nerds are going to love this, they're going to pour money at me, let's go.
Right. But it's weird, just like, it's like you got all of this going behind it, and it's weird how, like, again, it's not a terrible movie. It's a terrible Final Fantasy movie, but in itself, it's not a bad movie. It's not terrible.
Okay. It's not great.
Like, I think
the plot started halfway through.
Right.
He started the movie at the halfway through. This could have been a 2-part movie and been decent.
Right. And honestly,
in all seriousness,
and honestly, I think this movie's worst crime, beyond not being a good Final Fantasy movie, it's just it's kind of boring. Like,
it was very hard for me to stay even focused for the slight bit in this film whatsoever. Even when I rewatched it recently, it was just like, why am I watching this? I'm not enthused. I'm not mad. I don't find the movie upsetting or pissing me off, and it's not terrible, but it's so boring. I was falling asleep halfway through the film.
I think at one point I legitimately texted Jamie the words, "Oh my God, there's 45 minutes left."
You did.
Those are the worst words you ever want to say when you're watching a film. It's like, oh my God, there's still so much time left.
I was telling you guys before we started recording that I was watching this last night and I finished it around 12:30. I think I might have dozed in and out for the last 10-15 minutes.
Right.
I was just like, God, this movie keeps going.
And there was so Zach actually has the Blu-ray and I borrowed it from him. Mm-hmm. And I was in the kitchen at the end, I let the credits roll, and I heard something going on. I was like, wait, there's a Marvel style post-credits scene? I don't care enough to go back in.
There isn't. I watched the entire credits. There was nothing after the.
Oh God.
Okay.
But I do want to. Okay, I have a love-hate relationship with the visuals of this movie. First, the bad thing, it's very gray. It is a very monotone movie.
No, there was really not a lot of color or saturation or anything. 90% of all the graphics are like just very dimly lit,
like,
dimly colored.
I get that.
And the only flashy colors that come out is when the phantoms appear, when they're all bright orange and everything.
But that kind of works.
Yeah, like
it's in space. The whole thing is space. It kind of works, and for its age, that's not bad. Like it probably should have had a little more saturation. It probably should have had a little more, but like maybe the character should have had a little more pop. But like the characters, Sid had a big pop because he was all white. She had a little bit of blue. Like the main people had enough to identify them. Everyone else didn't matter. The whole thing was a giant mess except for the Phantoms.
Right.
And it just, for space being kind of void, it works.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, this is kind of like a post-apocalyptic kind of movie, so like, I get that the scenery is supposed to be kind of dismal and kind of bleak, so in that I can kind of give it a pass. But what I
and there was that one scene in the dream,
right,
when everything was fine. Well, the one big dream where everything was fine, like she couldn't get past it, and then when he was in there with her, she got past that big ending, and there was all that lush field, and it was beautiful. It was bright. It was, so it like showed that the whole world was doom and gloom until this whatever had happened that no one explained until right at the last minute.
Yeah. But that is one thing I do want to give this movie credit for, is that, like, especially for the time it came out, this movie is actually really pretty. Like, I mean, it came out in 2000. Computer graphics weren't that great yet. I mean, I think Shrek came out the same year, and Shrek hasn't aged terribly well. But
not too badly.
It's okay. Like, it's not Toy Story bad, because Toy Story has not aged gracefully. But no, this movie kind of looks like what a mid, like a mid, what's the word I want to use? Something that would have came out like in the middle of like the 360 PS3 era kind of cutscene kind of technology.
Okay.
That's what I want to say.
I get what you're trying to say there. Yeah.
I think so. A lot of people back in the day, I remember, were getting on this movie because it like went into that weird uncanny valley kind of territory. But I think now, looking back on it now, it's not as it doesn't stick out as much, because I think we're so used to seeing graphics of that quality as back then. Like, I mean, like Toy Story is probably the best we could do back then, and having a movie that comes out that looks like that, I'm sure put off a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, the motion capture is really well done for the most part. I mean, there's some instances where I think the characters' faces could have emoted more, but like when you get like Donald Sutherland, I love watching Donald Sutherland's characters, like his whole facial expressions. I think they did a really good job with him.
Yes, absolutely.
James Woods is, he's bad guy.
He's James Woods. He's James Woods. Like, he doesn't even have to put any inflection into his voice to make him sound like a bad guy. He's already James Woods. What more do you need?
He's James Woods with a space cannon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, by the way, there's a giant space cannon that they have for some reason.
Yeah, they call it the Zeus cannon. The Zeus cannon.
Wait,
like, if they wanted it more...
Get used?
What?
Did it ever actually get used? I forget.
Yeah, they use it because...
yes, they did.
Because they have this whole ethical debate about, like, okay, we want to use the Zeus cannon because we think it'll wipe out the Phantoms or whatever. And Sid is all like, well, if we use that, it'll destroy the planet. And then, like, James Woods goes up at the end of the movie after, I guess, Sid and all them, like, kind of failed, but haven't failed completely yet. And he's like, we're just going to fire the cannon. And he's just up in space shooting a space cannon until it explodes.
That's how memorable the space cannon is, everyone. It's so memorable that I literally watched this movie less than 24 hours ago and couldn't remember.
I forgot the space cannon.
You forgot the cannon.
But it's like, yeah, he's bad guy, has space cannon, uses space cannon. They warn him it's going to overheat. He says, fuck it, we're going to override that. And the space cannon explodes and he dies.
All right, listen
Yep.
up, people who made Final Fantasy. You could have made this movie better. All we needed was James Wood versus Sephiroth. All we needed.
Well, I mean, he's in Kingdom Hearts, and I don't know if Hades ever meets Sephiroth. He meets Cloud.
Probably not. Sephiroth only shows up in the freaking arena thing.
Right. I never beat Sephiroth. He was too hard.
Yeah. The only really big good thing I will give this movie credit for, and not because of how terrible it is, or the acting, or that the story makes no sense, surprisingly enough, this movie actually got me interested into Final Fantasy. Like, when this movie originally came out, I didn't get the chance to see it. I was not really into Final Fantasy at the time, and I was just a basic nerdy kid who liked Pokemon and sports games and Nintendo products. So I wasn't interested in games and movies and stories that, had more depth to them, had more interesting characters to them. And it was when I first saw this movie, when it came out on HBO, I think, like a year after it came out in theaters. And I watched it a couple of times, and for the most part, it's just like, this is a decent sci-fi flick. But I never understood that it was Final Fantasy. I never got the connection. Right. It wasn't until I went to school later on that day after I watched the movie, and it's like, you don't know what Final Fantasy is? It's like, no, I saw some film last night that had Final Fantasy in it. I didn't really know what to think of it. It's like, dude, that's not Final Fantasy. Let me show you what Final Fantasy is. And it's because of the spirits within that got me interested in probably not most of the primary Final Fantasy series, but the Tactics series. Tactics Advanced, War of the Lions, Advanced, and Advanced 2.
Yeah.
And just amazing, incredible stories, characters, and lots of drama and backstabbing.
And that's the big thing, is like, Final Fantasy is so well known for their stories, and this just did not. It
was
almost
bland.
It almost felt like they were supposed to, or were going to try to have a game to follow up it, or prequel it, and they didn't.
Seeing how, bad this thing bombed, it bombed so bad that Square had set up a movie studio for this film with the intention of making more films, and they shut it down after this movie.
Yeah.
Square Pictures does not exist anymore.
The week it previewed, didn't it?
What?
Didn't it shut down almost immediately? It premiered, and within that month it shut everything down?
I assume. It was... It probably did Digimon movie numbers where they shut that shit down in 2 weeks.
Oh, damn.
Oh, that movie's awful. But I don't want to shit on this movie entirely because like we said, it for its time it was an amazing looking movie. And I think if had this movie not been labeled Final Fantasy, but if it was just okay, it's just a sci-fi CG movie, I think it would have done a lot better.
It would have just been average.
Yeah, it just would have been hey, that's that really cool. It's like that kind of weird,
that neat.
Yeah. But I think because this movie was labeled as this is the Final Fantasy movie, a movie that I'm sure a bunch of nerds for years have been clamoring for a big screen Final Fantasy movie, that this wasn't what they expected. So that's because it doesn't draw on a lot of Final Fantasy tropes and stuff that, it's just, it kind of got shit on for that.
Not to mention there was the whole backlash with Aki and her character and everything else that kind of followed after it. At first they were going to praise her, Aki's character, a strong female role that's never really been seen too much in science fiction and everything. This would be a really great idea. And then Square Enix, for whatever reason at the time, still don't understand it, pushed her to wear a purple bikini and be in Maxim's Hot 100 in 2001.
God, I remember that now. Holy shit. I completely forgot they did that.
I'm looking... I'm looking at pictures of the movie, and it just so happens that one's right there. And it's just just seeing that alone completely destroyed any chance of her character being a strong role along the lines of, Ellen Ripley.
Yeah.
And other strong characters, or Laura Croft, or anybody. But no, they had to ruin it like that.
I don't think she ever really had a chance, because her character development in that story was, well, there wasn't any. She was just this strange, it's like they pre-developed her and then it like showed up in random, like it didn't, there was no, I never felt connected to her. The only person I even felt connected to was the captain or her boyfriend or whatever
Alec
his name
Baldwin.
was.
And he was an asshole 90% of the film.
But he actually
I didn't understand how this, am I supposed to like this guy? Because he's kind of a dick.
From the beginning to the end, though, like, at the beginning he was a dick and you hated him, and then, like, towards the middle, like, he starts to have feelings, and you see how he cares for her and how he cares for his team and how he wants to just do what's best, and, like, it just kind of keeps going, and, like, he actually got something. It's like he unintentionally became the main point, and she was nothing again.
Yeah. And
she is nothing more than a fucking parasite holder.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is, I'm pretty sure, what most men think all women are. Just kidding.
Oh. Okay. That reminds me of, like, one last thing I want to nitpick on this. So, through this entire movie, they make this big fucking deal about, like, okay, we need to get these 8, I think, spirits, and they, like, have to be, like, specific compatible spirits. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. So they go down to the planet, to, like, the weird impact crater with all the spirits, because they said, like, okay, our last spirit is here to complete this waveform or whatever. The space cannon kills the alien, but for some reason, Alec Baldwin's spirit is compatible, even though they didn't know that before, and he completes it at the end. And I was like, you just threw all of your rules about this, like, needing to be specific spirits or whatever right out the window just for plot convenience.
Not to mention when they went down to that crater after they blew it up, it's just like, oh, by the way, there's Gaia.
Right?
Yeah, he's just right, he's right under just all that, rock and dirt and stuff. There he is, right there. It makes no sense whatsoever, but there he is.
Gaia's just 20 feet below the ground. I mean, it's just right there. I mean, you dig with a shovel long enough, you'll find it. It's fine. But yeah,
and looking back at this film when I watched it again, it's just this. It's.
Yeah.
I don't know why they thought this would make a good Final Fantasy film. I don't understand how.
Yeah, and like I was saying, had they not labeled this as Final Fantasy, I think it would have done well. But at being a Final Fantasy movie, I think is really hurt.
I don't even think it would have done well if it wasn't Final Fantasy. I think the Final Fantasy name gave it just enough credit. I think, honestly, if they had added just a little more character development, if they added just a little more fucking story, pardon me, sorry, I'll have to probably clean that, more story, it would have been better.
You can say whatever the fuck you want on here, I don't care.
Sorry.
Not to mention just better infliction from the actual actors themselves to make them actually feel like they care about the script or the story. Make us actually care, because for the most part, the dialogue was stilted. It was dry. It was boring to listen to.
What was the Smarty Pants character's name? He drove me nuts.
The guy Steve Buscemi was?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god, his humor was so awkward, and it was so...
I don't even remember those characters' names. The only characters I remember was Aki Ross, Dr. Sid, and General Hein. That's it. I don't even know who Alec Baldwin's character's name was, or any of his little team. I don't even remember their names.
I think Alec Baldwin was like gray or something. Oh yeah, and Keith David's in this movie too. I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, I remember.
I love Keith David.
Yeah, it was just like looking. I remember. Like they were doing. Okay, so they're in the council room. They're talking about this is our plan. To use this theoretical thing that probably doesn't work in order to not upset Gaia and bring the signatures together that will fix all the problems. General Hein on the other side, just being like, no, we got to use this cannon to blow them up because we're going to kill them all. All I saw in that instance was just like, this is Mass Effect. Aki and Dr. Sid are the paragon. Woods is the renegade, and all I'm expecting is that there's going to be a renegade interrupt any second, and Commander Shepard's going to come out of there and punch James Woods in the face and tell him to shut the hell up. We're doing this the right way. That's all I could see. I had to think stupid imagery like that just to push through that film. That would have made the film more interesting.
Hold that thought just long enough. Once this new Max Effect comes out and it gets really big and they're going to start thinking about a new one, project that to someone.
When Andromeda comes out?
Yes!
Oh, I mean, I will say, I agree with you, Patrick. A lot of this, of the performances were really stilted. Like, Ming-Na's especially was like, I don't know if she had a vocal tone through this entire movie. Alec Baldwin, I think, was trying a little bit, but I don't think he understood. Steve Buscemi was trying way too hard to be funny. I honestly think, as weird as it is to say, James Woods was the best actor in this movie.
Yeah, he was the best one, followed by Sutherland. Well, those are the only two that actually did really well. If they didn't, of course, hammer it with like so much dialogue and so much plot, being said in the script, is like, okay, there is such a thing as, like, show us instead of just telling us.
Right.
Who was Sid's voice actor? Because he wasn't bad.
That was Donald Sutherland.
That was Donald Sutherland.
Okay.
He was in the Hunger Games.
He was pretty good.
Yeah.
So.
But
whatever.
Yeah. So I think I've said my piece on this. Is there anything you guys have to close on with this?
My final thoughts would be like.
Final Fantasy thought.
See it once. If you never watch it again, it is enough of an experience. Go watch it once. That's it. It's not great. It's not horrible. Get rid of the fact that it's Final Fantasy. Forget the fact that that's in the name. Go watch it.
For me, I would say that this film is altogether, it's a very forgettable film. You'll watch it, you'll be bored to tears, you'll try to make fun of how some of the characters, talk or something like that, just to enthuse yourself to keep watching this film. But once it's all over, you won't really feel any hatred towards it. You'll just feel meh. It's an empty film, it's very forgettable. And honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that Final Fantasy was tapered on it, again, it would still be a very forgettable, boring sci-fi film that
almost more forgettable.
Just isn't really that bad. It could be far worse than what it is.
Yeah.
The only thing that held it together was the CGI, and in some points still holds up today.
The only thing
but everything
that held
else
was James Woods.
Yes, James Woods and his mighty Zeus cannon.
James Woods is
If only Commander Shepard was there to punch his lights out.
James Woods is a national treasure.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Well,
Yes, he is.
I think that about wraps up this review for this week. If you decide you want to watch this, good luck, I guess.
Do it.
If you're going to watch this film, I highly recommend you watch it with friends to critique on it and make fun of it, like lots of other friends that I know do of. Or if you are of age, drink.
Or if you want
to be drunk while watching it. Makes it more interesting.
Or do what I wanted to do and just watch the CinemaSins version of this. So that works too.
Yeah. Do that.
Or if you haven't watched, either watch it from either the CinemaSins, or if you haven't yet, I would highly recommend the version from Pro Jared, who made a review of it, which I thought did a really fantastic job.
Yeah, he did a good job.
And who also is a really big Final Fantasy fan as well.
Yeah, it's true.
Or finish listening to this podcast and love it enough to say you've watched it and walk away.
There you go. All right.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Well, like I said at the beginning of the show, it is Final Fantasy month, so make sure you come back and check out our other reviews we'll be having till the end of the month. Fuck it, it's no secret. We're doing Advent Children next week, and then we'll do Kingsglaive at the end of the month. So yeah, look forward to those. That's all I got, man. I'm gonna go take a nap because this movie puts me to sleep.
I think it put all of us to sleep at one point or another.
It put me to sleep last night.
I didn't fall asleep, but I definitely started texting people.
You sure did. Well, thank you guys both for coming back on here. We'll have to definitely have you back on.
Absolutely.
Maybe next week.
Yeah, maybe. I'll have to I have to sit
Alright.
down and watch Advent Children again.
Oh,
I do
joy.
not. That is fresh in my
Oh
mind.
boy. All right, guys. We'll catch you next week.
Bye.
All right, sounds good. Catch you later.